get more attention.
Hi, my name is Jerry. I'm president of the Veterans Club out here at the campus. Just to give you a little bit more about my background, I originally started going to school in Chicago, Illinois at Wright Junior College. I started taking up a few of the data programming classes and basic computer class there, plus a couple of gen ed classes. That was in 1976. I was also working with the sheriff's office at the time, and during that time, come time for finals and stuff, and during my working hours and stuff, there was a big confliction in my being able to take tests and stuff with the different assignments that I had working with the sheriff's office. So I wound up dropping out of Wright Junior College, and then I didn't go back to school until I came out here moved out here to Rockford. I was actually living in Candlewick Lakes at the time, and I started back here at Rock Valley College in the spring of 2001. My first experience with classes here is kind of frightening because the area here, most of the students out here were a lot younger than I was at that time, and a lot of them are still a lot younger than I am at this time. Now I'm 66 years old. Back then I was 55 years old. So I had, quite a bit of time coming out here at Rock Valley College and trying to go to different classes and seeing all these young kids there staring at you saying, you can hear them talking with each other, hey, look, we got some old fart back here in the classroom. So, I mean, this is something that I had to kind of deal with, and then also being a combat veteran, suffering with PTSD, it makes things a lot harder on a combat vet. And I wasn't able to keep up with all of the other classmates there because none of them were combat veterans. But then in the Cisco class, I was able to team up with two other of the classmates that I sat in the back row with, and they kind of helped me and guided me and tutored me through the Cisco classes, so I'd be able to take and pass my classes there. So I think that kind of went well, and it kind of helped me a little further on. Well, after those courses was done, I was able to mingle a little bit more with some of my other classmates and be able to get some help from them. I wasn't afraid to ask them for help then, because I knew that the students were there to take and help. Then during that period of time, we had some family problems with family members passing away, my mother in the hospital and stuff, and I kind of got pretty much distracted, and then once again I dropped out of school up until about 3 years ago when I came back here to Rock Valley College again to start my classes over. So I figured, hey, I already have Cisco 1 and 2 out of the way. I might as well just go ahead and jump into Cisco 3. And when I start looking at some of the curriculum for it, I says, I think I better go back and take Cisco 1 and 2 over again, because there was a lot that has changed in over 10 years from when I first took it out here. So that's what I did. I went back through it and started taking it over again. And at no time during the years that I was going to school did I know anything about remote access until I took this networking class, and I really didn't know what this was all going to be involved in until we start doing a little bit with the remote access, and it kind of got my attention and drew a little interest of mine in it, because how many times do we leave home? We may leave a school paper or something at home that we saved on our computers there, and we forgot to bring it to school and we needed it that day. Well, if I had remote access on my computers or something, then we'd be able to connect from the school to the home computer and print it out, download it onto a flash drive or whatever, and be able to print it out. So to me, that seemed kind of helpful to have the remote access, and I wanted to learn a little bit more about it. And then I was searching through the internet, and looking up remote access, and I didn't find a whole lot of much of description and how it works and stuff. So I said, well, let me go one step further. I went and I searched and I found out the different reviews because I wanted to see which ones that the internet recommended and what companies and reviewers recommended. Well, one site had like for 46 tips on buying your own remote access software and stuff and things, but then there was one that really caught my attention, which was called the number1reviews.com. And what it does, it points you into the right direction for picking which vendor that they can go to get your remote access software. And the top 10 remote PC access services is also known as the Windows Remote Desktop Services. And I also have listed on these sheets the prices for each of the different service companies that were mentioned and the ratings, such as 4-star, 3-star, 5-star, whichever. Just like if you go on a lot of the websites and look up your PCs and they have the ratings of 2 stars, 3 stars, or whatever. Well, on the top 10 ratings, the number one was Go to My PC. It has a 5-star rating. It has 30 days of free access. The price for the home version was $19.95 per month for one PC. For 2 PCs was $29.95 per month. For 3 to 20 PCs was $14.98 per month extra per PC. Then the number 2 one was Log Me In, and that was a 4-star rating. It only had an annual subscription of $69.95 for one PC. 2 to 10 PCs was $59.95 per PC, and 11 plus PCs was $49.95 per PC. Then they did have a monthly rate on that, and for one PC was like for $12.95. 2 to 10 PCs was $9.95 per PC, and 11 plus was $7.95 per PC. The third ranking was the LapLink Everywhere. It was a 4-star. It had free limited functions. And for the full version, for one PC was $49.95. 3 PCs was $99.95. And then they had a discount for 5 or more licenses. The fourth rank was TeamViewer, and that had a 4-star. It had free private use. So you could, if you have a business, you couldn't use it with your business. You only had to use it privately for your own personal stuff. The business license for one installation of supporter and unlimited clients, that one there was $699. A premium license, unlimited supporters and clients was $1,399. The corporate license for unlimited supporters and clients was $2,590. So some of them aren't really that cheap. Then the fifth one was the WebEx PC, and it has a 4-star rating. It's a Cisco service. It's highly secured and versatile for PCs and Macs. And the price on that, in which I was surprised at, was only $10.35 per month. The number 6 rank was Show My PC, and it's a 4-star rating. It's a remote access only plan for one PC at $5 per month. 3 PCs was $9 per month. 5 PCs was $12 per month. 10 PCs was $20 per month. Remote access with remote assistant features premium was $14 per month. Professional was $19 per month. Business was $39 per month. Enterprise was $49 per month. and they had 2 private servers from ranging from $390 to $5,100 for 30 PCs. Number 7 was the Stardock Multiplicity. It would have a 4-star rating, and it's standard version, 2 PCs, no copying functionality for $29.95. Pro version, up to 6 PCs, full copying functionality was $49.95 with a 15-day trial version. Number 8 was Symantec PC Anytime. It had 3-star rating. It was the online store for $199.99. Number 9 was Remotely Anywhere. It's a 3-star rating. It has Workstation Edition at $99, Server Edition at $199. Number 10 was Real VNC. It provides a free version for download, and Personal Edition was $30, Enterprise Edition was $50. And then it has a discount may be available for educational and nonprofit use. And in conclusion, after looking at the different companies and playing around with the remote access here in school and doing with my partner from home, if you, like I said before, if you forget your papers or something, it's good to have, so this way you can take and always get your papers back off your main computer that you have the software installed on. But I think one of the other downfalls to it is if a person forgets their password, they're kind of screwed. And if you forget to shut your session down, or you don't have your computer set up where it'll stay on all the time on the internet while you're gone, you're screwed. So, I mean, it's got its ups and it's got its downs. And with the price ranges, you always have to remember, just like a car or anything else, you get what you pay for. So, is there any questions?
Out of the ones you presented, good presentation by the way, which one did you like?
The one that I liked was the number 1 pick of Go to My PC, because it has a lot of safety features in it. Although they say Cisco is highly secured, the Go to My PC had a lot of different safety features in it, which would be encrypting your transmissions back and forth from end to end, and a hacker couldn't just jump in there and crack that encryption that easy.
Good presentations. Give me a hand. Good job.
Thank you.
Okay, go ahead and come on up and get some more food while we get prepared for number 2 presenter. Number 2 presenter, you can go ahead and come on up. The broadband, costs of broadband. I think I forgot one out earlier, which was the Prezi presentation. I did not leave you out, or I didn't forget you. Yeah, I know. You're going to be, I guess you'll be yeah, you'll be at the end, evidently, so sorry, I remembered. So go and come on up while I get Alex ready here. Then after Alex is malicious code.
What? Yeah. All the more chances for tech support to lose the case file, dry cleaning to go missing.
Okay, Alex, you want to go ahead?
Your broadband provider did not realize that you have an account with them because
Yeah, I think I'm that's over. I think it's getting.
worst case premise on
Well, it does. I usually about 30 minutes.
Thank you.
program
This you go
lately.
advance, and that you go back.
My previous week and Adobe came on.
Let's see if that'll.
On remote
Yep.
access, which is really cool. So I could watch what they were doing, you know.
What if I can point at this and get? Nope. Okay. Sometimes you get it to
Okay,
bounce off the
everybody
glass.
get something to eat? Everybody come up and get something? All right, Alex, it's all yours. Let's give our attention.
Okay. Let's get my stuff in order here, too. And, okay, we're off to a great start.
Move this where you can put your stuff on here.
Okay. Actually, that's kind of nice. Okay. Can I dim the lights? I like it darker.
Oh, okay, that's fine. You can definitely, against the wall there, or the board. There you go.
Makes me feel more comfortable, and then you can fall asleep if I get too boring. So
There you go.
just wake back up when the lights turn on. Okay, so I'm going over the broad cost of broadband, which is a little bit deceptive of a title because half of this is also the history of how we went from no internet to slow internet to fast internet. I'm also going over why I think we're paying too much for broadband. So, for starters, just imagine for a second here, if you had to pay 3,000% markup on everything. So all of a sudden your $1 cup of coffee at the drive-thru is, $30. God forbid you get the $5 cup at Starbucks. If you go out and get a favorite outfit, all of a sudden that goes from $60 to about $2,000. And God forbid you need to put food on the table because instead of spending $100 at the grocery store, you're now going to spend more like $3,000. Obviously, 3,000% markup doesn't work, which is why it's good that we live in a free market. It regulates that kind of thing. If I tried to sell you apples and oranges for 3,000% markup, somebody else would come along and say, well, wait, I can grow this and sell it for only 1,000% markup. I'll sell it to you for a third what that guy is selling it for. And then you keep going down and down until finally you have somebody that's willing to take maybe 50 to 100% markup, which is about what we pay for most of our services here in the US. Of course, there are exclusions. There are patents on certain things, such as software and whatnot, but for the most part, those are entertainment products. Those are things that we splurge on. And so it doesn't cripple us because we're not paying insane markup like this for generic services that anyone can offer. At least, not usually. Because, interestingly enough, according to a recent study done by MIT, internet service providers enjoy 97% profit on their services, which means you are paying 3,000% markup for access to a completely generic, unpatentable idea, actually, not even product. You're paying for a service to access an idea. So, thinking about this and reading this, my first question was, how did we get to this point to where that seemed acceptable? Well, I'm guessing most of you don't really think that 3,000% markup is acceptable, and that's probably alarming to hear that. But how did we get to the point where we're not aware of this and where that seems, I guess, okay? And to answer that question, you actually need to go back about 20 years to the era of dial-up. So in a free market, before we get into dial-up too much, in a free market, prices are regulated in two ways. And the first is perceived value, the second being competition. So actually, I forgot to advance this. Okay, so there's a graphic of the cost for you of what most ISPs are paying to provide your internet. And all of this is the profit. So yeah, I know I'd love to get away with that. I'd be rich. I'd be swimming in pools of money. So anyway, prices are set one of two ways: perceived value and competition. Now, with perceived value, we look at something and we say, is it worth that? Is a video game worth $50? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Is a gallon of milk worth $100? Hell no. So perceived value plays into what we're willing to pay for things based off of that. Also, it plays into how competitive the market is, because if we, a gallon of milk is a gallon of milk. It doesn't matter if it comes from Dean's, an off-brand. It really doesn't matter. It came from a cow. That's what matters. So with perceived value in that sense, that enables competition because there's no exclusivity or anything of it, which also plays into the internet because you're paying for access to it. Beyond acceptable speeds, there is really nothing exclusive about how you access the internet. With competition, that is simply, self-explanatory. That's individuals, entities competing with each other for your business. So for starters, how do we value the internet? And that's a question that is really hard to answer. Most people don't fully understand what the internet is, how it operates, and up until about 20 years ago, when it became mainstream in American homes, most people didn't even see, necessarily what the value was. Go back 20, maybe 30 years and ask somebody what an email is. Seems kind of stupid to not know now, but it seems kind of nerdy to know back in 1991. So how do you place a value on that? How do you place a value on the plethora of news and entertainment services, of the research articles you can access? How do you place a value on being able to dial in to the collective culmination of human achievement and find whatever you want, pretty much? And like I said earlier, it's not really an easy question to answer. But AOL answered that for us. For starters, they gave us a free trial so that we could find all of these amazing things. We could see the wonders of email. We could send grandma on the other side of the country that email, those dog pictures, those cat pictures, the embarrassing outfit that we forced our children into when they were younger. And that didn't cost 50 cents. That didn't take a week to get there. That was instant, assuming grandma knew how to log into the email. And so after that free trial, excellent, went forward one. After that free trial, when we realized the value of this service, how much were we willing to pay for it? 20 to 30 bucks a month? That seems reasonable. That's a couple nights out at the movie. We can do that for 1 month of internet. And that's pretty acceptable for something that's a digital service like this, because there is a high profit there. When AOL was originally debuting, probably the #1 dial-up ISP in the nation, when they debuted, they had about a 70% profit margin, which equates to about 300% markup, which is okay. Now, over time, as AOL started to penetrate the market more, enter American homes, technology became better and cheaper, which enabled their cost to provide this service to go down. As it went down, markup hit about 500% before you saw other competitors, two of which I'm guessing most of you are familiar with would have been NetZero and Earthlink. When they debuted, they cost about 10 to 14, more along the lines of 10 though, dollars per month. And this, after the cost of having their own servers and a backbone that they tapped into that you then dialed into, gave them about 100 to 150% markup, not profit, that's a typo. So anyway, over time, through dial-up, over 2/3 of Americans went online. Almost 2/3, but a little bit more. So we started to go online, we started to see the value of the internet, even in its 56 kbps dial-up, buffering the pictures, forget the videos glory. We went online. And then as we went online, we started to see needs for new demands. All of a sudden, instead of pictures, well, why can't we watch movies? What about downloading music or pirating music? Napster is actually probably one of the pioneers of the need for broadband internet because of piracy of music. Programs, why go out to the store and buy them when you can download them in your underpants at 2 in the morning? So all of these questions were answered with the emergence of broadband, mainly DSL and cable, which are still the forms that we use today in the US. Now, when these services debuted, they gave us access so that we could download programs, so that we could watch movies, hopefully legally, download and listen to music, again, hopefully legally. All of this was made possible by broadband, and if you think it's possible on dial-up, I dare you to watch Netflix on it. You're not going to be happy. So anyway, as broadband emerges, we start to see similar pricing and free trials. Again, there's this part of the market that doesn't necessarily see the convenience or utility in being able to use all of these new services online. So you get free trials for some instances. DSL was a big one there. They would give you usually like a month free. You could back out any time, and nobody did because they were hooked on it like a crack addict is on their drugs. So anyway, you show the customers the need. Once people start adopting it, people go over to friends' houses, they see the need for it there, it starts to penetrate the market. Eventually, dial-up starts to die. Now, interestingly enough, it was originally priced to compete with dial-up. I'm sure most of us remember DSL costing $14 a month. Cable, originally, cable internet, you could get that in some locations for maybe $20 a month with a free trial. But over time, that started to go up. Is anybody in here paying $20 or less per month for broadband internet? Yeah, I know, dream, right? Then you wake up and then you see the bill in the mail and it's more like 50, 60 maybe, yeah? Yeah, so interestingly enough, it starts to go up in cost. However, this isn't a case of them subsidizing the cost originally to show us the need for it as they penetrate the market. Broadband internet costs the same as dial-up to support. Now, if you think about the infrastructure of dial-up, you simply used your telco company's phone lines to dial in to a little server center that is connected to a national backbone that hooks you into the internet. With broadband services of DSL and cable, again, you already have the infrastructure built. You're working off of cable lines. Not that those have been around since 1950. You're working off of phone lines. Not that those have been around since the 1900s. And so you're working off of an existing infrastructure that's already there for a different service. Beyond that, again, you have the cost of servers and connections to slightly more expensive backbones to the internet. Beyond that, the cost is the same. So we've been paying more, as dial-up started to die, these broadband services started to cost more. So we've been paying more for something that costs exactly the same, simply because we don't really know how to calculate a perceived value, but we know it's faster. Personally at home, I can pull down 60 megabits per second. That's about 1,000 times faster than AOL when it debuted. However, I'm not paying 1,000 times as much. So to most people, they see that, it seems like a good deal. Now, that's my first dirty little secret, that it costs the same to support broadband internet as it does to support dial-up. My second dirty secret comes from the Pew Internet Research Center, which is a really well-respected research agency that does metrics on the internet, looks at statistics of things like this. And they did a longitudinal study that showed in 2005 the average quarterly operating expenses of major ISPs was $200 million. Now, last year, in 2012, that cost was $100 million. So that's gone down in what, about 7 years? That's gone down by half. In the same time frame, DSL is no longer $14 a month. Cable internet is no longer more like the $30, $35 it was when it debuted. Now, let's see here. Cable has gone from an average of $40 per month in 2005, cable internet, to $55 per month this year. DSL has gone from an average of about $30 a month to an average of $40 a month this year. So we're actually paying even more over time for a service that is costing, actually, if you look at the graph that they had, exponentially less over time to support, which I find maddening and kind of sickening. And all of this culminates to MIT's recent study that we are paying 3,000% markup. We are paying for a service that is 97% profit, which, again, I don't like. But a lot of skeptics who are actually pretty big in this, like writers and columnists for IT journals, said, well, this can't be true, because if it were true, well, then we would have competition that would come in and start to bring down that price, just like you would for any other service. The internet's generic. You're providing access to it. That's not patented. Anyone can do it. Also, they said that it does not account for infrastructure. Both of these claims are invalid, and I'm going to tell you why. The problem with the infrastructure argument is that, as I said earlier, 80 to 90% actually of the infrastructure used for DSL and cable exists. Your phone lines were around way before the internet. So was your cable television service. And 80 to 90% of that is coaxial cable. And in fact, a lot of it that's fiber is fiber that was already put in place because it's cheaper for them to manage on high traffic areas. Beyond that, you simply have the additional cost for servers and whatnot that help create the backbone for the ISP's internet, and then hooking into the national backbones for the internet, which again, that's only about 10 to 20% more of the network. Now, that is, granted, that is an infrastructure cost, but here's why you don't have to factor it in at all. Google Fiber. Google laid fiber in Kansas City. They created a brand new all-fiber network. That network, because it's fiber, cost about 5 times as much to implement. However, unlike the cable and DSL companies, unlike your cable and telcos, Google released information on how long it took for that network to pay for itself. And from subscription fees alone, not subsidization or anything from governments, from the fees they're charging the customers who have gone to Google Fiber, it paid for itself in 2 years. That's 24 months. So if we take the more conservative approach, the 80% figure of infrastructure already existing instead of 90, and say that 20% is new, that leaves 1/5 of an infrastructure cost to turn a telecommunications or cable network into an internet service provider. All of a sudden, you take 24 months, you divide it by 5, multiply by 1/5, And this service pays for itself in about 5 months. After that, you cannot factor in infrastructure costs. The infrastructure has been built and it's going to last for about a decade. Relatively maintenance free. Infrastructure, blown out of the water. So the last skeptic's argument would be that competition comes in. However, the issue here is that for competition to come in, for starters, you do have to build an entirely new network. Google's fiber network cost about $100 million to build and another couple $100 million to hook it up to residents, to subscribers' homes. All in all, I don't know about you, but I don't know too many upstarts that can throw $300 million into something for a city, let alone something nationally. To cover the same region that national Tier 3 ISPs, such as Comcast, Time Warner, and Charter have, would literally cost billions of dollars. Granted, it could make up for itself in 2 years, but not too many people have that kind of money to throw into a new service right off the bat. And I really don't think too many of us would be exactly too receptive if somebody came up to our door and said, hey, will you pay me, $500 for internet access for 2 years so that I could build this network? No, that would be considered a fly-by-night operation. So you really have a hard time building this kind of network unless you're already a huge corporation such as Google. That's problem one for breaking into the network, breaking into the ISP subscriber base. The other problem is that Tier 3 networks, and before I use Tier 3, 2, and 1, I don't know if we've talked about it in this class already, but Tier 1 providers are huge internet providers that you've never heard of. They lay transatlantic cables that really are the major arteries and backbones of the internet. It's almost like the arteries for your heart and your heart itself. It's really the biggest thing that makes the internet tick. From there you have Tier 2s. Those would be like your blood veins and whatnot that are kind of carrying lots of blood to other organs, like your lungs, your muscles, your brain, your eyes. And then your Tier 3s are like your capillaries that are taking it to all the little skin cells, which would represent us as consumers. The Tier 3s being majorly the ones you've heard of, such as, again, Comcast, Charter, and Time Warner. Now, the Tier 3s aren't going to allow you to hook into their network in order to start your own ISP. They're not going to. In fact, all of you, if you have Comcast, Charter, or Time Warner, you signed an agreement saying you wouldn't do this. And there have been a couple of cases, in fact, a man in Florida, for example, who tried to resell Tier 3 internet access, and he got his pantsuit off because he broke that clause. So besides that, you've only got a couple areas then that you can actually tap into Tier 1 or Tier 2 providers, which also makes it easier for Tier 3s to illegally corner the market. You have select areas where you can really conceivably start up a Tier 3 internet service provider to residents. And in an example of RCN Communications versus Comcast, RCN is a company that provides cable and phone and internet service, and they tried to come into one of Comcast's dominated markets. And what Comcast did was they simply undercut. They started charging less than it actually was costing them to provide services. They were charging like $5 and $10 a month for everything until RCN finally died, went out of the area, and then Comcast resumed their normal rates. Also, another tactic you can use is to simply, as soon as somebody wants to leave you, and this one's actually legal, you can simply say, well, how about we give you 3 months free? If you keep doing that long enough, then your customers aren't going to go to the other place because you're simply giving them free access until the other guy dies off, and then you can remain a monopoly over that area and simply start saying at that point, no, we're not giving you anything. You give us the money. You want internet access? You want funny kittens? You give us the money. Kind of like a mafia. So that's how they illegally undercut their competition, and legally. In fact, actually, with the RCN versus Comcast example, RCN sued Comcast and won, and Comcast was fined, but RCN still didn't have enough money from that lawsuit to come back into that market. And the fine that Comcast paid was easily made up for by the 97% profit they're making off of ISP subscription fees, user subscription fees. So anyway, one other final validation that I can use to prove that that statistic is correct and how much we are overpaying for internet access is South Korea. Because South Korea, much like the cities that have been blessed with Google Fiber, has about a 60% penetration of residential fiber rate. And in South Korea, I was trying to research what it costs for internet access there, but I couldn't find it. Because an entire triple play bundle, as we know of it here, costs an average of $28.5 US adjusted from their currency per month. which equates to about $10 US per month for internet access that is for over half their customers 5 times more expensive to create and much better. So what I did at that point is I said, okay, if we have a network that's 5 times better, that costs about 1/5 of what we're paying, if you consider that the average person's paying about $50 a month for broadband, they're paying about 10 if you separate it out, and their network's 5 times better. All in all, if you were to try and compare this to the US market and adjust those ratios for that, you would get us paying about 25 times more because their service is 5 times better and 1/5 the price. So we're paying 25 times more than they would for comparable service. Which actually, if you then look at that, means that we are paying about 96% more, giving about 96% more profit, which means that, yeah, considering that these guys still have to make some money in South Korea too, that definitely accounts for the 97%, and in fact, that proves that MIT's statistic might actually be conservative. It could be worse. So there's a little bit of history there on how exactly we got to where we are on the internet and how we're paying too much for it. So why again? Existing non-competitive atmosphere, your local telephone DSL cable provider, and your local telephone provider for DSL and your local cable internet provider. For the most part, they agree to not compete with each other, which helps them raise rates. And unfair business practices, such as we've seen with RCN and Comcast, as well as gray area business practices, such as only giving free trials to individuals who are in areas with competing startups. In fact, Time Warner Cable will not give you any free extension of access unless you live in Kansas City, in which case they've actually slashed their rates in half, still making a profit. They've slashed their rates in half so that they are collectively a little bit less than Google Fiber, because a lot of people don't say, oh, my God, I have a gigabit connection versus this. They say, oh, both of them can load videos, so I'm going to go with the cheaper one, which is now Time Warner because they cut their rates slightly. And even if you want to leave, they'll keep giving you free access because they want to keep you. You do this for a place that's not huge like Google, and they'll die. And then all in all, we have a lack of choice. In South Korea, most residents have a choice of about 3 internet service providers, and in some cases more. Over there, if you move into a new residence, you will literally have door-to-door salesmen come and try to sell you their internet because it's an extremely competitive atmosphere, hugely. And when you've got 2 choices for a fiber internet connection and 1 or 2 choices for a copper-based internet connection, maybe, yeah, there's huge competition. It drives down the cost to what it is right now over there. So unlike in the US, South Korean ISPs compete. They're actually capable of doing that. There aren't really any monopolies going on over there. You have multiple broadband providers. And all in all, we're overpaying for internet. So I could go on for the next half an hour on what we could do about this, but I'm hoping that a start might be having informed you guys on the history of how we got to where we are and how we're overpaying. So hopefully I didn't bore you too much, and thank you for your time.
Good man, good job. All right, come on up and get some more food, and I'll just take my phone.
Oh, there you go.
And we've got malicious code next.